Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to read you a book today. It's called The Invisible Boy. It's written by Trudy Ludwig and illustrated by Patrice Barton. So the title is The Invisible Boy. So we know it's going to be about a boy. I want you to think about what it means to be invisible exactly. So invisibility means that people can't see you, or they don't see you. So let's go ahead and get started and see how this little boy could be invisible. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. So this is gonna be Brian, our invisible boy. And this is their teacher, Mrs. Carlotti, and it says that Mrs. Carlotti doesn't notice Brian because she's too busy dealing with these two, and they kind of look like they're maybe crying, causing trouble a little bit, and so she's too focused on dealing with them to really pay attention to Brian. Nathan has problems with what Miss Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. So we have Nathan and Sophie, and then there's Brian. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first. Then the best friends of the best players. Then the friends of the friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. So when they're choosing teams to play, I believe it was kickball, Brian is the last one chosen because he doesn't really have any friends. So I want you to realize that Brian is not actually blind. They can see him, but he feels blind because he doesn't have many friends. His teacher doesn't pay attention to him really. So I wonder if any of you guys have ever been the last one chosen for a game. I know when I was a kid, I was always afraid to be the last one because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good when nobody picks you. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. So they look at Brian and then they look away and they decide they don't want him to play with them, which is really not a nice thing to do. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did except Brian. He wasn't invited. So there was a birthday party that Brian was not invited to, and everybody's talking about how fun it was in front of him. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings, space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. So we have some of his drawings here. He likes to draw different things. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. So we have a new student named Justin. Brian is smiling at him. Maybe he wants to be his friend, and the other students aren't sure if they want to be his friend yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. It's bulgogi. Bul what? Bulgogi, it's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? There's no way I'd eat booger googie. The kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. So the kids are making fun of his food and the way he's eating because he's eating Korean food. So maybe Justin is Korean and all the kids are making fun of him and laughing, but Brian knows what it feels like to not have any friends. So he's sitting over here feeling bad for Justin. The next day when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked really good. Brian. So Brian wrote a really nice note to Justin, and here it is, and it's got a picture of him eating with chopsticks, which is a really nice thing that he did. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin! Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. So it looks like Justin is starting to make some friends. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up into 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio, let him work with us. Okay, I guess. So we've got Justin talking to Emilio, and he told him to let Brian join their group. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. So we can see that Justin is really trying to be a good friend to Brian, and it's making Brian happy. We can also notice that Brian is starting to not look invisible anymore. He's becoming less invisible on each page. Here he's not invisible anymore because he has friends. And then on this page we have them, and it says the crooked story we made up on the spot. So we've got some pictures of their story of them performing in front of the class and working together. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian, he hears someone shout. Hey, Brian, over here. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. Cookie? Thanks. So that's going to be the end. I hope you like the book, and I want you guys to just try to always be like Justin and try to be a good friend to those who maybe don't have friends, or if somebody is being mean to somebody, you can stick up for them. So anyways, I hope you liked The Invisible Boy, and I'll see you next time.